Modified stock car racing. Modified stock car racing, also known as modified racing and modified, is a type of auto racing that involves purpose-built cars simultaneously racing against each other on oval tracks. First established in the United States after World War II, this type of racing was early on characterized by its participants' modification of passenger cars in pursuit of higher speeds, hence the name. There are many sanctioning bodies for modifieds, each specifying different body styles and engine sizes. History. Modified racing began as race drivers modified their cars to gain a competitive advantage over their fellow competitors. What started out as minor modifications to the cars has now grown to the point that some modified classes are no longer based on any current production vehicles. NASCAR was instrumental in modified racing's beginnings. Some of NASCAR's pioneers were veteran modified racers long before NASCAR's inception in 1949. As time progressed, modifieds grew away from strictly stock or stock cars and became akin to both stock cars and open-wheel cars. Today's supermodifieds have more in common with Indy cars than they do stock cars. Asphalt Modified. These modifieds are found mostly in the eastern half of the U.S. Both of the sanctioning bodies NASCAR and ASA listed here use the same rules, but do not race on the same tracks. The cars are easy to identify. These modifieds sit on large slick tires that are exposed on all four corners of the car. The roofs of these cars are more rounded than the other types of modifieds. Their bodies look somewhat squashed and have large 8-inch high 200 mm Lexan spoilers on the rear of the cars. The driver sits on the left side of the car and most of the time will have some type of small plastic windshield in front of him or her. All of these cars sport small NASCAR or ASA stickers on the doors. The largest builder of modifieds in the U.S. is former driver Maynard Troyer, who after retiring in 1982 set up shop, and in the 1980s was turning out 100 asphalt modifieds annually. The NSTA Top Speed Modified Tour is located in Carmel, Indiana, and has been around for approximately 30 years. www.topspeedmods.com. These asphalt race cars got their start at Mount Lawn Speedway near Indianapolis. It was once called the USA Modified Series. This traveling series races at local short tracks in Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio. In 2013, they raced for the first time on a road course near South Haven, Michigan at Gingerman Raceway. The series changed hands for 2017 from ICAR to NSTA after being purchased by John Robbins, nephew of the former ASA pioneers from Dave Musillo. NASCAR Wellen Modified Tours. Northern Tour. The NASCAR Wellen Modified Series is the only remaining NASCAR series from the sanctioning body's original season in 1948. The original style of NASCAR modifieds actually predates NASCAR's existence by many years. Though it is now known as an asphalt oval-only series, this was not always the case. The series originally started on dirt, and as more and more asphalt tracks opened, the series migrated to racing on the newer tracks. The series also had previously made forays into road racing with stops at Watkins Glen International in New York. Drivers like Bobby Allison and Red Farmer got their start in the NASCAR Modified Series, which was popular both in the South and the Northeast. Many NASCAR Sprint Cup drivers have come from this series, including Ryan Preece, Jimmy Spencer, Jeff Bodine, and Steve Park. Southern Tour. In late 2004, NASCAR bought out the Southern Modified Auto Racing teams SMART and promptly renamed it the NASCAR Wellen Southern Modified Tour. The Southern Tour uses exactly the same set of rules as the Northern Tour, but races primarily in the southeastern section of the U.S. The majority of races on the Southern Tour schedule occur before late April and after August as not to interfere with weekly racing at Bowman Gray Stadium. Once per year, the Northern Tour and the Southern Tour race at Bristol Motor Speedway in Bristol, Tennessee. The two tours were permanently merged for the 2016 season. American Speed Association, ASA Southern Modified Tour. NASCAR's Welland Southern Modified Tour has a direct competitor in the American Speed Association Southern Modified Tour. The ASA Southern Modified Tour came about as some tracks that were part of the NASCAR buyout of SMART were unable or unwilling to join NASCAR. The ASA was contacted, and the new series was formed. Although both sanctioning bodies use the same rules much as NASCAR and ARCA did with the Sprint Cup Series and the ARCA Re/Max Series, they do not share a single race date, nor do they race at any of the same tracks. Dirt Modified. Dirt Modified is probably the most popular type of racing in the U.S. Almost every dirt sanctioning body has a class of modifieds. The Super Dirt Car Series modifieds are the easiest to identify. The driver sits in the middle of the car with high downforce when channeling tunnels on either side of him. The roofs are very flat and tilted to catch additional air. The front suspension is usually a coil-over setup with a torsion bar set up for the rear suspension. They utilize full-tube chassis, which to the untrained eye looks to be a sprint car chassis, but is much different in reality. The IMCAS-style modifieds are easy to identify as a whole, but distinguishing between the sanctioning bodies is all but impossible. The bodies are very flat on the sides and lack the downforce-generating tunnels the DIRT car modifieds sport. The driver sits on the left side. One of the most notable differences between the IMCAS-style modifieds and other modified series cars, the use of stock production car frame sections as part of the racing chassis. These cars also race on smaller tires than the other types of modifieds, with most sanctioning bodies specifying the same tire. The IMCAS sport mods appear very similar to their brethren, but have distinctly different engines. The IFCO kit mods appear the same as the others, but sport full-tube chassis, and by rules, have to have Ford 2300cc inline four-cylinder engines. Super Dirt Car Series. Founded in 1976, the Drivers' Independent Racetracks Dirt was acquired by Boundless Racing in June 2004, which had purchased the World of Outlaws in February of that year. In November 2004, Boundless Racing changed its name to Dirt Motorsports. In December of the same year, Dirt Motorsports bought Midwestern sanctioning body UMP. The former Dirt Big Block and Small Block Modified series has seen many changes in their car designs since the 1970s, but the competition and will to win has remained the same. The ultra-fast, super nimble cars race primarily in the northeastern U.S. and in Canada, but have had a race added in the Midwest on the 2007 and the 2008 schedules. NASCAR and World of Outlaws late model driver Tim McCready came from this series, as did World of Outlaws late model drivers Tim Fuller and Vic Coffey. All of those drivers still race in the series on a part-time basis, between 10-30 times a year. Notable drivers having competed in dirt modifieds include Bobby Allison, Tony Stewart, Andrew Ranger, Dave Blaney, Carl Edwards, J.J. Yelly, and David Uteman. IMCAS/Wissota/UMP Modifieds. Organized in 1915, the International Motor Contest Association IMCA is the oldest racing sanctioning body in the U.S. IMCA introduced the E-Mod or Economy Modified in 1979. It has become one of the most popular dirt racing classes due to its simple design, lightweight, high power, and ability to adapt to varying track conditions easily. Most MCAS-style classes also boast a claim rule, wherein a racer may buy a competitor's engine for a small amount of money, usually around $500. This rule was intended to keep engine prices from skyrocketing. Sanctioning bodies WISSOTA and United Midwestern Promoters UMP also have classes that are almost identical to MCAS modifieds, with a few small exceptions. The AMRA, or American Motor Racing Association, also follows this popular formula for modifieds. NASCAR drivers Ken Schrader and Kenny Wallace own and race UMP modifieds on off weekends from NASCAR. Some tracks sanction modifieds with IMCA-like specifications, such as Slinger Super Speedway. IMCA Sport Mods. IMCA designed a new lower-cost class of sport mod cars in 2004 to complement their modified division. The division is divided into Northern Sport Mods and Southern Sport Mods divisions. The Northern Sport Mods have a few small differences from the Southern Sport Mods in the body of the car. These cars are somewhat smaller and have less powerful engines. They can be differentiated from IMCA modifieds because the car has a brake in the body that extends from the rear roof to the spoiler at the rear. UFCO Kid Mods. This relatively inexpensive when compared to their adult counterparts racing series is aimed at getting children into racing. It closely follows UMP modified rules, with the exception of a few areas. The engine must be a 2300cc Ford inline four-cylinder, and the drivers can be no younger than 12, nor older than 18. Some tracks will allow kids 10 or 11 to race if the track's insurance will allow. The kid mods are also allowed to run tubular chassis, whereas the IMCA/WISSOTA/UMP modifieds have to have sections of frames from stock production automobiles, with other sections being steel tubing. These cars are offered for sale completely assembled and ready to race for under $20,000. The unassembled price is lower. Outlaw modifieds. GLOM. Found in the Midwestern United States, the Great Lakes Outlaw modifieds GLOM are a cross between IMCA modifieds and UMP late models. These cars have nearly the same handmade aluminum bodies as their UMP late model counterparts without front fenders, feature tubular chassis, and sport unrestricted engines with aluminum engine blocks and heads. They also are allowed to utilize quick-change rear ends and aluminum wheels, whereas the IMCA modifieds are forced to race with heavier cast-iron engines, partial stock frames, steel wheels, and Ford 9-inch 230 rear ends. Arc Latex. One type of outlaw modified can be found in the Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas area. Oddly enough, they are called Arc Latex winged modifieds. These outlaw modifieds sport full tube chassis and bodies that look like the Advanced Auto Parts Super DIRT car racers, with the exception of the sprint car-like wing affixed to the roofs of the cars. These cars can also be found deeper into Texas, such as Dallas and Waco. They are not always bodies that look like the Advanced Auto Parts Super DIRT car racer with a wing. Some of the winged modifieds use bodies called skinny bodies that are not currently being made, but some drivers still have these. Winged modified racing began at Boot Hill Speedway in Greenwood, LA, and spread throughout the area. Soon Hart-O Texas Speedway in Waco, TX was running them, so on Friday nights anybody from the Arc Latex would go over to Waco and drive winged modifieds there, and on Saturday night they were at Boot Hill Speedway. Some of the nation's biggest legends started out racing winged modifieds, such as sprint car veteran Gary Wright of Hooks TX National Dirt Late Model Hall of Famer and Boot Hill Speedway Hall of Fame inductee Doug Ingalls of Longview TX Boot Hill Speedway Hall of Fame inductee Papa Ray Ingalls of Longview TX late model veteran and Boot Hill Speedway Hall of Fame inductee Ronnie Adams of Greenwood, LA, Hart Oak, Texas Speedway Wall of Fame inductee Eldon Dotson of Aomra. One type of outlaw modified in Alberta, Canada, races on both dirt and asphalt with the same cars. Started in the mid-1980s, the Alberta Outlaw Modified Racing Association Aomra races in Alberta, British Columbia, and Saskatchewan. They look like a cross between IMCA Modifieds and old NASCAR Modifieds. Outlaw Modified Racing Series. Organized in Florida in the 1970s, they are built on tube chassis with coil-over shocks. 10-inch wide 250 mm tires and a 76-inch 1900 mm track make these cars are fast and nimble. 2300 cc four-cylinder power plants from Fords, Toyotas, and even an odd Nissan are common. However, the Ford 2300s are the favored motor. Motor rules have stayed very stable over the last 10 years, with the only rule change coming in 2008, which allowed the Esslinger aluminum D-port head, due to the declining availability of the cast iron cylinder heads. One thing that sets these cars apart from most modified racing series is that these cars do not utilize roofs on the cars. Super modifieds. Another type of modified popular in the southwestern and northeastern parts of the USA is the super modified. Supermods are low-slung, almost body-less modifieds that utilize wings on its chassis to achieve enough downforce to take turns at extremely high speeds. They also feature engines that are offset to the driver's side, also to aid in taking turns at high speed. There are 4 sanctioning bodies in America that sanction supermodified racing. The New York-based International Supermodified Association (ISMA) is the largest of the 4 and a true touring series. The Western States Supermodified Racing League WSSRL is ISMA's West Coast counterpart. The ISMA Supermods are a bit more technologically advanced, in that the wings attached to the roofs of the cars move. When racing down the straightaways, the wings are almost level. When the car gets to the corners, the back of wing tilts upward, adding downforce to the car. Scale cars. Legends Car Racing. U.S. Legend Cars International of Charlotte, North Carolina created the Legends series while they were named 600 Motorsports as a way of getting more and younger people into racing with affordable cars. The cars were designed to be 5/8 scale 1930s and 1940s coupes and sedans. Cars raced in the past in the NASCAR Modified Tour. They all feature a tube chassis and spec 1250cc Yamaha motorcycle engines. Dwarf Cars. Dwarf cars are similar to the Legends cars in that they are scale replicas of vintage race cars. The similarity ends there, as dwarf cars are true open modified style cars without fenders, and have a 1250cc 76 coup-in limitation on the engine size. The Western States Dwarf Car Association, begun in 1993, has become one of the most successful racing organizations in history, boasting an average of 8,100 dwarf cars at 4 national and several regional events a year. There is also a class of dwarf cars that race on dirt called the Vintage Light Series. They race a mixed field of cars that resemble the vintage cars and some that resemble a scaled-down version of the current dirt modified. These cars are often referred to as the mini-mods. Mod Lights. A mod light is a 5/8 scale of a dirt modified.